do you think the Jake Paul-Anthony Joshua fight plays out?
I don't know. I want to make sure. I believe it once I see him in the ring.
If Paul starts his boxing career earlier, could Jake Paul have been a champion?
There's a possibility.
Um euch wissen zu lassen, dass ich bereit für einen Rückkampf bin. Sobald es mir besser geht, wenn mein zweiter Kiefer bricht, ist das in Ordnung. Vorerst kein Weihnachtsmatch-Hühnchen. Anthony Joshua's.
Iron Mike just dropped some words that have the entire boxing community losing their minds. The baddest man on the planet watched Anthony Joshua absolutely demolish Jake Paul in Miami, and what he said afterward is completely rewriting everything we thought we understood about where his loyalties really lie. People have been speculating for months that Tyson was running some kind of behind-the-scenes operation, secretly coaching Joshua while everyone wondered which fighter he actually supported. Well, the mystery is solved now. This goes way beyond just another post-fight soundbite. What we're looking at is a game-changing moment that's about to reshape how we see the entire influencer boxing phenomenon. When you find out exactly what Tyson said right after watching Jake Paul get completely demolished, you'll understand that the heavyweight legend had this planned all along.
You know what I remember? Coming back from the first round, and then the next thing I remember Jake is doing some kind of, I don't know, what was he doing at the ring?
Oh, yeah, a little bow at the end, he bowed.
And that's the last thing I remember. You know, but the day after the fight, the day after, I woke up, I told my wife, why did I do that? You know, I don't know, I just don't know what the hell goes on.
The atmosphere at the Casilla Center that night was electric in a way that felt almost ominous for the content creator trying to prove he belonged with real fighters. Sure, we read all the pre-fight coverage, but the real story was unfolding backstage in those tense minutes before they rang the opening bell. Tyson had been working with Joshua as his mentor, and he'd been programming one specific savage mindset into the British heavyweight's brain. This wasn't about technical boxing advice or defensive strategies. What Tyson was feeding Joshua came straight from his own bloodthirsty prime in the 80s. The message was simple and terrifying. Attack Paul with absolute ruthlessness from the opening second, and don't stop until it's over. The final piece of advice was pure vintage Tyson psychology. Destroy him before he destroys you. That old school killer instinct seemed to awaken something dormant in Joshua that we hadn't witnessed in recent years.
Jake would have moved around the ring at 100 miles an hour. There's two things I would have done. Tried to shut Jake down at 100 miles an hour, or I would have gone on the back foot. So Jake decided to move around the ring, and I decided to put the pressure on. What I could have done better is a lot of things, 100%. In the fight game, you've seen the amazing fighters that have graced us over the last 100 years, and the expectations that we put on ourselves are immense, but I tried my best. Jake done well while it lasted, but if you remember what I said in the interview with Cameron, is fighting's not just physical, it's psychological. And when you understand the psychological warfare, I did say to you that, Jake, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna see a time when I'm gonna take your soul, and you're either gonna give up or you're gonna get knocked out. And unless you have that instinct, you just will never be a good fighter. So I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw tonight, Jake has spirit. He has some heart. He tried his best, and I take my hat off to him because, number one, a lot of fighters haven't got in the ring with me, and Jake did. And secondly, even when he got knocked down, he kept on trying to get up, and I take my hat off to him. So America, I think you have someone who could potentially, if he still has the heart for it, come back again, dust the dirt off his shoulder, and come again and maybe sell out this center sometime in 2026. Maybe against a Gervonta Davis, a Ryan Garcia.
Now here's where things get really wild. Right before Jake Paul started his journey to the ring, a journey that's looking pretty questionable in hindsight, Someone unexpected showed up at his locker room door. Mike Tyson walked in, but this wasn't another strategy session with Joshua. This was an unscheduled one-on-one moment with the guy he was supposedly working against. What Tyson said to Jake in that pressure cooker moment wasn't filled with the savage energy he'd been feeding to AJ. Instead, he looked straight at the problem child and delivered some real talk about what it means to chase greatness. He told Jake that this fight represented the ultimate test, and that only fighters willing to risk everything ever reach the top level. He reminded the younger man that the biggest regrets belong to people who never even try to tune out how good they could be. Right then, Tyson wasn't just coaching the favorite to win, he was acknowledging the underdog's courage to step into the fire.
He's beautiful. My family loves Jake Paul.
Could you fuck him up?
Oh, I'm so fucking easy. I would never. I mean, it's my own fucking family. Everybody loves this little white motherfucker. When you see a white boy with balls, you know, fuck. I'm talking about from real, but like.
The size difference became obvious the second they touched gloves. Anthony Joshua entered that ring carrying 30 extra pounds of pure muscle, making Jake Paul look like he was facing an actual giant instead of the slow, older version of Tyson he'd previously outboxed. Jake spent 5 full rounds in survival mode, desperately searching for the same opportunities that worked against retired legends and mixed martial artists transitioning to boxing. But Tyson's savage game plan was being executed to perfection through Joshua. AJ wasn't just landing shots, he was stalking his prey with predatory focus. When the 5th round ended, the entire dynamic had flipped, with Paul kissing the canvas twice already. The Miami audience, which had been getting restless early in the fight, suddenly went dead quiet as the inevitable became clear. This wasn't turning into a competitive match. This was becoming a public execution.
Oh, God. I think the gig is up. I'm just tired of Jake Paul as a boxer. I think he's done a fantastic job. He dressed up like Hulk Hogan. I just don't know how many more times Netflix is going to go to bat for him. But I think they will one more time because, you know, the axiom is basically if you draw money, you're going to be getting chance after chance until you're not drawing money, and then you'll still get a couple more chances after that because he did draw money, and that's kind of where he's at right now. You know, he's going to draw with Tyson, he's going to draw on this one, and so he's going to get a couple of more chances, you know, with Netflix, and they'll pay that. You know, good for him. They'll pay that money, but man, these are, you know, this was just a bad fight, and made boxing look bad. Made boxing look bad in many ways. You know, especially. It just was a circus, and the guy, you know, going for takedowns, and the ref's not doing anything. I thought the ref was terrible. Thought Joshua, you know, was not good. Hurt himself, and then he even admitted it. And Jake was just out there, not trying to win a boxing match. He was trying to survive and get the moral victory so he can go out there and be, you know, oh, you know, I lasted 6 rounds with Anthony Joshua, and he survived 6 rounds with him.
He survived all right.
But he showed heart, unlike certain other people we could mention. The end came in round 6 with a violence that shocked everyone watching. Anthony Joshua connected with a right cross so perfectly timed and brutally powerful that it didn't just stop the contest. It launched Jake Paul straight into emergency medical care with what doctors suspected was a fractured jaw. The problem child had finally encountered a problem he couldn't solve, and the chaos that followed was absolutely insane. While the medical staff swarmed the ring, every camera in the building focused on Tyson, who was observing his student's handiwork with the calm satisfaction of a master watching his plan unfold. What he said in those first moments after the knockout was layered with meaning. He gave Paul genuine credit for lasting almost 6 complete rounds and staying competitive longer than most people predicted. But then Tyson's thoughts shifted to something that has everyone talking. What came out of his mouth next is causing absolute pandemonium throughout the sport.
Very easy question to answer, very easy question to ask off the top. And I'll ask you the same one that I asked AJ. What did you make of that fight? What are your impressions of that fight?
I mean, I thought it was much better than I thought it would be. I mean, I know that people are going to say, well, Jake was running and Jake was hold, but listen, I mean, at the end of the day, Jake had one job, and that was to try and survive. I mean, he was never, ever going to win the fight, ever. And if you would have said to me, do I think he'll go 6 rounds? I would have said absolutely not. I mean, I felt that it would take AJ a couple of rounds to get hold of him, because I knew Jake can move a bit, and he'd be moving off the back foot, and he'd be holding. But it was the way that he did it, I think, was actually quite impressive. Like, not that particular part, but the way that he would, you know, the way that he was strong in the clinch. You know, he wouldn't let AJ get his shots off in the clinch. He made him miss a few times. And obviously AJ's been out of the ring for a while. But to be honest, I think the most fascinating thing of the whole night in terms of the fight was how he didn't get flatlined by that right hand. I mean, I said going into the fight, he's probably going to take AJ a few rounds to get hold of him. And I also said, as soon as he lands clean, the fight's over, right? He landed a few before, but the first that he landed really clean was the final shot. But, you know, he never flatlined Jake. I mean, he did break his jaw in 2 places, which is a disaster, but there are a lot of heavyweights that would have been out cold from that right hand. I mean, one of them was Francis Ngannou in a pretty similar shot, really. Do you know what I mean? So I actually give Jake unbelievable credit for doing it in the first place, but his performance as well. I mean, I stand by the fact that I think he's just a decent cruiserweight, but like, he did go in with Anthony Joshua, and look, the world is full of criticism and opinions and negativity. Who else is doing what he's doing at what is he, late 20s? I mean, quite phenomenal. I mean, the guy's a complete madman. I'm watching him come out to that ring walk, and he's just an incredible entertainer. And I'm sort of standing in the ring going, is he for real? And he did all right. I mean, I know people will talk about the holding, but his job was to survive, and he survived for
6 rounds of punishment and a trip to the hospital with a broken jaw should have been enough to end this whole saga. But Mike Tyson operates on a different level than everyone else when he gave his first official statement. After the fight, Tyson announced that he's completely interested in running it back with Jake Paul sometime in
I'm just hoping after this Floyd fight, maybe we can have a rematch. He did well, but I want to try it again.
Is that something that you would be interested in terms of righting the wrong and not?
Remember, we're talking about a man who's going to be pushing 60 and already has a huge exhibition lined up against Floyd Mayweather this spring. Yet he's claiming that his time working with Joshua has shown him better preparation methods than he's ever used before. He confessed that during his original bout with Jake, he overtrained and left his best performance in the gym instead of bringing it to fight night. Now, after watching AJ execute the perfect strategy, Tyson believes he can come back and complete his own unfinished business. It's the kind of move that seems simultaneously inspiring and completely reckless, making everyone wonder if this influencer boxing circus will ever actually reach its final act.
After I beat Mike Tyson, the amount of people saying this is rigged was crazy. They like showed this clip of Mike Tyson going to swing at me with a left hook, and he like stopped doing it, but saw I had my right hand up, so he would have like swung like this, I catch it and shoot, he's leaning forward, like I could have knocked him out. So that's why he stopped throwing it. And it's like they play this one clip and it has literally 50 million views on TikTok, but the average person doesn't understand boxing.
The internet explosion was something else entirely. Joshua wasted no time jumping on X to share a photo of the knockout punch with the absolutely ruthless caption, "Netflix and chill," plus a throat-cutting emoji. The post immediately went viral with millions of people sharing it within the first hour. Then Tyson Fury decided to insert himself into the conversation, blasting Joshua's kill or be killed comments as completely inappropriate. AJ wasn't having any of that criticism, so he used his post-fight press conference to directly challenge the Gypsy King, potentially setting up the most anticipated heavyweight showdown in UK boxing history. KSI couldn't resist jumping into the chaos either, dropping a reaction video that completely roasted Paul's defeat, adding even more fuel to a community that feeds off this kind of high-stakes drama and public warfare.
And if Tyson Fury is as serious as he thinks he is, and he wants to put down his Twitter fingers and put on some gloves and come and fight one of the realest fighters out there that will take on any challenge, step in the ring with me next if you're a real bad boy. Don't do all that talking, AJ this, AJ that. Let's see you in the ring and talk with your fists. Is that good for you?
That is good, but
Both Joshua and Paul are now stuck with indefinite medical suspensions after the sheer brutality of what happened, which is completely normal protocol when someone gets knocked out that severely. But the real questions go much deeper than just a temporary break from fighting. Was Tyson's whole involvement really just his way of getting payback for losing to Paul in the first place? Did he deliberately transform Joshua into the perfect weapon to demonstrate that old school boxing philosophy still dominates? And the biggest question of all, is the world actually prepared to watch a 59-year-old Mike Tyson climb back in there with someone who just got his jaw shattered by a heavyweight in his prime? The controversy surrounding Tyson's post-fight words confirms that in today's boxing landscape, what happens inside the ropes is only part of the entertainment. The real action happens in the private conversations, the surprise locker room appearances, and the perfectly timed revelations that keep all of us completely hooked.
Very easy question to answer, very easy question to ask off the top. And I'll ask you the same one that I asked AJ. What did you make of that fight? What are your impressions of that fight?
I mean, I thought it was much better than I thought it would be. I mean, I know that people are going to say, well, Jake was running and Jake was hold, but listen, I mean, at the end of the day, Jake had one job, and that was to try and survive. I mean, he was never, ever going to win the fight, ever, ever. And if you would have said to me, do I think he'll go 6 rounds? I would have said absolutely not. I mean, I felt that it would take AJ a couple of rounds to get hold of him, because I knew Jake can move a bit and he'd be moving off the back foot and he'd be holding. But it was the way that he did it, I think, was actually quite impressive. Like, not that particular part, but the way that he would, you know, the way that he was strong in the clinch. You know, he wouldn't let AJ get his shots off in the clinch. He made him miss a few times. And obviously AJ's been out of the ring for a while. But to be honest, I think the most fascinating thing of the whole night in terms of the fight was how he didn't get flatlined by that right hand. I mean, I said going into the fight, it's probably going to take AJ a few rounds to get hold of him. And I also said, as soon as he lands clean, the fight's over, right? He landed a few before, but the first that he landed really clean was the final shot. But you know, he never flatlined Jake. I mean, he did break his jaw in 2 places, which is a disaster. But there are a lot of heavyweights that would have been out cold from that right hand. I mean, one of them was Francis Ngannou in a pretty similar shot, really. Do you know what I mean? So I actually give Jake unbelievable credit for doing it in the first place, but his performance as well.
Incredible how things change so quickly. Miami is cleaning up the aftermath, while Jake Paul starts what's going to be a very long healing process, and the entire sport looks completely different than it did just days ago. Anthony Joshua is back to being viewed as an absolute destroyer. Tyson has positioned himself as a legitimate main event option for 2026, and the problem child is trying to rebuild a reputation that seemed bulletproof just a week ago. Maybe Tyson's advice to Paul about having the courage to chase greatness was actually a farewell gesture, or maybe it was his way of letting the young fighter know that the baddest man on the planet still has unfinished business with him. We'll have to wait and see whether we just witnessed the final chapter of this story, or if we're actually looking at the opening scene of something even more intense.
The worst thing he's done is he's actually just got AJ quite fired up. AJ's walking off the stage like, let's go. And I'm like, oh no. Oh no. I know a lot of people around him didn't want him to take this fight. I would think as well he's absolutely petrified. Like when AJ literally had his fist is twice the size of Jake Paul's. And I'm looking at it thinking, you know, Jake's gonna do really well to just get knocked out kindly. If he shows any ambition, which he might do, he's gonna get knocked clean out. I don't know if they showed it on the stream because they probably didn't want me to talk, but AJ brought me in. He's like, this guy started Jake Paul's professional career and tomorrow night I'm gonna end it. He could literally, in the first 20 seconds of the fight, he could throw a lazy jab and AJ will just counter him over the top with a right hand like he did against Ngannou. The fight's over. He will literally have 5 or 6 shots land clean on his chin. It's actually a bit annoying that people think there's a script or it's fixed because it's just ridiculous. I think because it's so wild, people presume we've agreed to take it easy on him. I'm even thinking that, and I know there isn't. I'm looking at it going, will he really do through with it though? Do you think he might pull out a week before? And now I'm we've just weighed in. I'm like, oh my God, it's actually happening tomorrow night. To everybody watching, what the fuck is going on? I gave Jake Paul his pro debut, and tomorrow night AJ might quite possibly give him his last fight.
Thanks for watching today's breakdown. Make sure you hit that like button if this content delivered. Subscribe to stay updated on all the latest boxing drama and smash that notification bell so you catch every single upload. Drop your predictions in the comments below because I want to hear what you think happens next. Keep watching, and I'll see you in the next one.